before you this evening on connecting up to the water supplies. And we have Clark Frisey? Sorry. Clark, we do this every time, don't we? We have John Harrington and we have John Rosoka, who's going to be speaking to us tonight. And I'm going to turn the meeting over initially to Clark. And when they get done, we will do a question and answer. And I'm going to say that we're going to accept questions from people who are being connected or potentially being connected. We're not taking questions from people from outside the town or who are not being connected. So with that being said, Clark, you have the floor.
Make sure I'm doing this right. So good evening. Thank you for coming. Appreciate your time. It's nice to be here meeting and talking about actually getting connections done.
Can't hear you very well.
Gotta speak into the mic.
Okay, I'll speak in the mic more carefully. There we go. All right, so first part of this is just going to be a quick update on where we're at in the overall investigation of the site and the legal parts of this. We'll then transition over and Horizons Engineering will talk about the process to get you a design and then get connected to public water. So just a reminder, this is the St. Cobain plastics, performance plastics contamination area. That's what we're focused on this evening. If you're from one of the other investigation sites, similar to what Lynn said, we're not focusing on that this evening. So why we're here is we have completed a consent decree with St. Cobain Performance Plastics. The first question we usually get is, what's a consent decree? The way these things usually work is we go to Superior Court, we file a complaint against somebody, and we immediately hand in a consent decree. What that is both parties agree to settle their differences through whatever's in the consent decree. If the Superior Court judge accepts it and signs off on it, the Superior Court now holds that agreement and can enforce that agreement and make sure that both parties are doing what they said they would do. In this case, the consent decree is with St. Cobain. It is specifically only about the state's claims. So you still have the right individually or as a group or as a town, if you feel you have been damaged or injured in some way, you still have that ability. Nothing in the consent decree takes any of your rights away. Next, please. All right, and specifically who is covered. In previous meetings, we've talked about disputed areas. Those are the areas where we felt St. Cobain had liability and St. Cobain disagreed. Any area where we showed you before was a disputed area, St. Cobain in the consent decree has taken on that responsibility. So if you were previously listed as a disputed area, you are covered. And the consent decree is public, and you can look for your address in there if you want. Similarly, Horizons has individualized folders, and we've got maps, so we can show you where you are. So if there are any questions, we can answer those. Oh, I should have said the other. One of the questions that we've been given is, how did these disputed areas get delineated? Basically, what we've said is if any house in a neighborhood is over 70 parts per trillion, the state standard, then we're concerned that if that house stops pumping and goes on public water, that contamination might go over to the neighbors. And so if a neighborhood has anyone over 70, we've asked the entire neighborhood should get done. And that's how the disputed areas were delineated. Total that adds up is listed here. 18 properties were already done. There were another 8 that are very near the plant that had already been agreed to. Those are all now in the consent decree. Any property that was previously treated or is being treated, they're all listed. So you can see all of the properties and all of the different phases of this progress. The part that we're really focused on are the 55 both developed and undeveloped properties that are listed in the pinkish color back there. Those are the ones that are really the focus, which I think is on the next chart. Yeah. So the pinkish colored properties, those are the ones that are really the focus this evening. And again, the goal is to get you out, get an appointment for your design, and Horizons will go through the pattern of how this gets to the point that you're connected to MVD water. Next. One of the other questions we get is on the water quality with MVD. I know there are concerns when this first got started. What we've been looking at is there's a handoff point between Merrimack and Bedford, which is at the edge of the NHDES system. We've been able to test there every week since this investigation got started. I think we're over 100 samples, 103 samples so far. Those have ranged from 3 parts per trillion to 60 parts per trillion. The 60 parts per trillion were at the very beginning of the investigation when wells 4 and 5 were running full bore. In fact, they were the primary source of water inside the NHDES system at that time. Wells 4 and 5 are the ones that are contaminated by Saint-Gobain. They've been taken offline. If you look in all of 2017, when NHDES 4 and 5 were offline, the average was 17.5 parts per trillion, and the highest that was measured was 25 parts per trillion. This year so far, the average has been a little bit lower on both the maximum and the average. Once NHDES 4 and 5 get treatment, which I think on the next slide, Saint-Gobain has come into agreement with MVD. They are funding a treatment system. It'll be granulated activated carbon, a very well-tested technology, a very well-known technology. I was just at the EPA's ORD, Office of Research and Development Lab for Water last week in Cincinnati, and they have done extensive testing on granulated activated carbon, and not just for the C8 compounds, PFOA and PFOS, but also for the shorter chain compounds. This is an effective methodology and technology. The design should be completed this year. Construction will start next year. They'll have to go through a piloting process to make sure it comes online smoothly. So that might be into 19 and a bit later into 19 before it's online. And don't have a final date on that because they do have to go through a piloting process. Beyond that, one of the other questions or concerns is that we're going to disappear. And this is not the last time you'll see me or the rest of the team. This, to us, is really the beginning of the site investigation. The consent decree covers that they must do everything we would normally do at any contaminated site. We've gotten sort of backwards. Usually we do the water treatment at the tail end because we're investigating maybe 4 homes around the dry cleaners. In this case, we've got 750 properties total that are being dealt with. So we focused on the drinking water and getting the houses dealt with as quickly as possible. Now they still got to go and do the full site investigation. Go to the next. Some of this has already been done. Very early on, we did testing at all the schools, playgrounds, daycare centers. Soil is good. We're not having problems with contact levels. So far that's looking good. We've also done some surface water sampling, a lot of groundwater sampling. We just completed another round of air testing where the Office of Research and Development at EPA is going to do parallel testing next to a commercial lab, so we'll get a good feel for what's going on in the stacks today. And we are working with Saint-Gobain to try and get them to put air treatment on their stacks so that nothing is coming out of their stacks anymore. That's what this testing round is about. We gave some announcements, and when we have the results, we'll put those out also. All right. So now it's my pitch part of what Horizons is going to tell you. One of the things that we're going to come up with is a decision point. One, do you participate with the design? Do you get connected to public water? And then what do you do with your well at the end? We absolutely recommend you participate in the design, absolutely recommend that you connect to public water, and DES absolutely recommends that you decommission your well. Decommissioning, what they do is they come and they pull a pump out, all the electronics out, they cut it a couple feet below grade, so below the ground. They fill it with gravel. If you do it now, Saint-Gobain pays for it. If you don't do it now and you have to do it at some later date, it's at your expense. And so we really recommend that you decommission now. This is not the last time you'll hear me say this, and I've asked these guys to say it too. There's multiple reasons. Number one is there's contaminated water in your neighborhood. Once your well is grouted in, you have no connectivity to that contaminated water. And we want you disconnected from that water in every way possible. Biggest reason of all. Second reason is, once everybody in your neighborhood stops pumping, if you've still got a well and you're still pumping, we don't know where that contamination is going to go. Even if you tested it non-detect yesterday, 2 years from now, if you're the only person pumping in your neighborhood, you and we have no idea what level of contamination is in the water you're pumping out of the ground. If at a future date we discover that you are now highly contaminated and we and the public health officer from the town decide that you are a public health risk, you will be ordered to decommission your well at your expense at that date. Don't know if that will happen, don't know if it ever would or when, but it's one of the risks that you take on if you don't take advantage of St. Cobain decommissioning your well today. The other is, if you go to sell your property and you're in a groundwater management zone and you have an active connection, a well, to that contaminated water, at sale, you've got to tell them. And if I'm a person buying your property and I get told there's contaminated water and you have a direct connection to it, I'm going to tell you to decommission the well before I buy the property. Personally, others may have a different opinion, but that's certainly, again, a risk that you're taking on if you don't take advantage of this today. You don't have to make the decision today to go over the timelines. But as a part of this process, decommissioning your well, again, we strongly recommend it. It's got some benefits to you, and it takes risk from the future out for you. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce John. John? Yes.
John Warzaka from Horizon, so we'll get a little bit of a brief on the company.
All right. Good evening, folks. So my name is John Warzaka with Horizons Engineering. First off, just to start out, I wanted to introduce us to you folks. We're the engineer that's been hired by St. Cobain to help facilitate this water main extension project. Facilitate. Oh, sorry. So really, we want to just introduce us and kind of talk a little bit about our firm first, to just let you know who we are, and really mainly to tell you guys that we're here to try to make sure that this job gets done expeditiously, gets done smoothly, and that we get you guys connected to safe water supply. So a little bit of our firm. We were founded in 2004. We've got offices in Littleton, New Hampshire, in London, New Hampshire, Pomfret, Vermont, and Newport, Vermont. It's 4 offices, about 30 people overall in the company. We're civil engineers, land surveyors, environmental scientists. We do a lot of this kind of work. And one of our specialties is doing water system work here in New Hampshire. So we're very well versed in what needs to be done here. And we've got a pretty strong familiarity with projects like this. So really that's our goal here tonight, was to talk about how we want to get this project done, how we'd like to work with you guys to facilitate the connections to your house. So what we're going to do is John Harrington here is our senior engineer. He's going to be the one that's really driving the bus on this project on our end, and our main point of contact for you folks. So John's going to talk a little bit tonight about the details of how we're going to facilitate this, how we're going to get it done, what the steps are going to be, and what the schedule that we're anticipating is. And then after that, we'll put it open to questions, and I'm sure that folks are going to have a lot of questions. And then also we'll talk a little bit more about the well decommissioning that Commissioner Freeze mentioned. And again, we fully agree with DES that this is the time. We really would encourage folks to let us come in while we're doing this to decommission the wells. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Harrington here, who's going to get into some of the details here about the project.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everybody. I'm John Harrington, as John mentioned. I wanted to start off by just introducing some of the key personnel from our team that will be involved with this project. John Warzaka, who you just heard from, is the CEO of our company, and he'll be involved at more of a higher level. I will be the managing engineer on the project, as John mentioned. Also with us tonight is Mike Duffy. Mike's standing in the back there. Mike's involved more on the construction aspect of the project, helping us with selection of contractors right through construction, but he will also be involved with some of the design as well. Our remaining staff on the project will make up the design team for design support and construction inspection support. Then we have construction personnel involving contractors and subcontractors that will come along. Can you hear me now? Okay. Apologize. Loose cord there. So during construction, there will be some contractors and subcontractors involved. I think it's working. So, and I wanted to stress in red letters there, if there's any questions throughout construction, throughout the whole process, please feel free to call that number, 802-457-3151. That's our office number. Any questions or anything, if folks need information, we'll figure out a way to either we can answer it directly or redirect to an individual that can assist. So I just wanted to provide a few bullet points to give a brief overview of the project. After the consent decree was finalized, St. Gobain retained Horizons to provide design and construction assistance services for the water service expansion in Merrimack. Horizons will be assisting St. Gobain in selection of contractors to construct the project. The project involves 55 properties total, 37 of which are developed and 18 properties are undeveloped. In order to provide this service, we estimate approximately 3,400 feet of water main will need to be extended. The project also includes provisions for fire flow service, so we will be adding approximately 6 fire hydrants as a result. I'm not going to touch it. So this is the map. Some of you may have seen this out front. There's a 24 by 36 map out front of this as well. But this is just a map that shows an overview of the project. You will see the properties that are shaded in blue are the undeveloped lots, and the properties that are shaded in yellow are developed lots. The existing water line you can see is orange, and the green lines are the proposed extension locations. You'll see we have extension on Wire Road and Jason Drive, extension on Ridgewood Drive and Knollwood Drive, and on Page Drive here. Some project highlights to mention. Design and permitting work is currently underway. The water main is planned to be installed within the Merrimack town right-of-way limits. Town right-of-way permit is needed for this work. Our objective is to begin construction by late August and complete construction by the end of 2018 construction season. Construction is dependent on a number of factors and could be pushed into 2019. Now I want to get a little bit into the details of what construction involves for the existing wells. As you've heard from DES, there are 2 options with respect to removing your existing well from service. The recommended option, as mentioned, is well decommissioning. This involves disconnecting water service from the house, removal of well pump, piping, and treatment systems. The well casing will be cut approximately 2 feet below grade, filled with grout material, and backfilled. The other option is well disconnection, which involves disconnecting the well water supply from the home and leaving connections for non-potable use, such as lawn irrigation and exterior spigots for car washing. More information on this is available out in the front, and I noticed some folks have already got some folders, so that's good, but if you haven't seen those yet, they're out front. So in order to complete the water line installation and well decommission work, it will be necessary to disturb properties and city streets. We are planning to take measures during design and construction to minimize impacts to the extent possible. Original conditions will be documented with photos, and any disturbance to properties as a result of this work will be restored to original condition. Any necessary trenching in city streets will be saw cut and restored with pavement patch material after the water installation. And again, we will be following the town of Merrimack requirements for the work in the streets. So again, this project will be installing service line from the water main to the curb stop at your property line. For existing residences, the water service will extend from the property line into your home Once the water mains have been installed, they will need to be pressure tested, and then sometime after that, the current well will be terminated and water will be hooked up inside the house. In order to perform this work, we will need to gain access to your home and property. Again, additional information is out front regarding this. So when we're out there working, we want to be sure that the public knows that it's us out there working on the project. And this slide just explains how the public will be able to identify our workers. We will always contact property owners ahead of time and make a pre-arranged appointment to access your property. All of our employees out in the field that are on this project will be wearing ID badges with name, picture, badge number, and our company phone number. So if you do see someone out there and would like to call the company to confirm identity of the individual, they will give you a card with the phone number and their name on it, so you can call our office to confirm their identity. Some employees, mostly our surveyors, I think have the logos, will be driving Horizon's logo vehicles, and some, like me, will not. But the Merrimack Police Department and our office administration staff will have a list of these vehicles, including make, model, and registration number, which can be confirmed with these entities. So we wanted to share some highlights on what it means to be a customer of a public water system. Water from public water system is subject to compliancy with all standards under the Safe Drinking Water Act. A water system will be monitored and treated in compliance with these standards. The water will be supplied with 24/7 access and backup power available to help keep the system running in the event of a power failure. For more information, you can go to the Merrimack Village District website at www.mbdwater.org or call MVD at 603-424-9241. So we have some tables set up out front again with Horizon's personnel available to help provide information, and I see that some information's already been handed out, so that's great. If you'd like to sign up tonight, there are some forms available to review and sign, including the well election form. Any copies of signed forms that are that you'd like back can be sent back to you via U.S. mail or scanned and emailed, whichever your preference. Just please let us know. We do also have a large calendar prepared to schedule the initial site visit with available dates for next week and the week after. So along the lines of what's next, I've added an anticipated timeline for the project on this slide. So this is preliminary at this point. You'll see we have a little note at the bottom. The schedule is dependent on factors that could cause it to change, but this is what our objective is at this point, and I think it's doable. So we're now at May 9th, and over the next few weeks, we plan to visit the properties. We plan to be out surveying for the water main and doing our scheduled site visits. The next few weeks, May 25th to June 15th, we hope to have final design and plan development done. And then we're assuming a 4-week time frame for state and local permitting. July 14th, August 3rd, working with contractors with contract bid documents and cost estimates. And then a 2-week time frame, August 3rd to August 17th for procuring a contractor. And then ideally, we'd be starting construction sometime mid-August to late August. So with that, we'd be happy to try and answer any questions. And I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight.
Any of you folks that are being hooked up or potentially hooked up have any questions for these gentlemen? Come on forward. Or just stand and,
I have two questions. It looks like maybe blasting might be required to go out Wire Road. I'm wondering if you anticipate that, if you're going to have a pre-blast survey of the homes before you blast.
thank you.
Repeat that question. Could you come to the mic?
The question is, along Wire Road, is there going to be any blasting, and is there going to be a pre-blasting survey done if there is?
We're still in the preliminary stages, but at this time, I apologize. Thank you. So we're still in the preliminary design stage of this project, but at this time it was our anticipation that we could handle any ledge with a hydropneumatic hammer on an excavator. So at this time we don't anticipate any blasting, but certainly we'd follow all protocol if that was deemed necessary.
My second question was water pressure. I'm at the end of Wire Road there, and it's going to be the end of the line until they develop that property next to me. I have a hydropneumatic tank now for my well. Well, does it make sense to connect the town line to that tank, or will water pressure be fine?
So you're questioning water pressure where you are now and what you've got in existence?
You understand the question?
Yeah, the water pressures that are connected to the municipal line will meet the minimum requirements. So you shouldn't need to hook it into a hydropneumatic tank. You should have adequate pressure.
Yes, sir.
Back on the water pressure thing, some of the older houses like mine got 60-year-old plumbing in it, and I'm sure the water pressure from the town is going to be greater than my well puts out. What happens if I start springing leaks in the interior plumbing in the house?
So you're talking about older houses with
60-year-old plumbing.
60-year-old plumbing that may not be able to tolerate the higher pressure on the new system.
Yeah, I don't know how much more pressure it's going to be, but I'm just thinking ahead.
Got it.
There are minimum and maximum thresholds for pressure that were required to stay between on the city water. I believe it's 80 PSI. MBD's here now for MBD. Ron, do you know what the?
I want to say it was 71 PSI in that area.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Minor just from MBD just said that it's about 71 to 80 PSI in that area. So if high pressure, if that high of a pressure is a concern to you, we can work with you to.
You better get the pipes.
I'm just
try to
saying,
address
if it's so much higher than my well is pumping out now, it's going to affect any of the old plumbing, and if it does, who's going to pick up the tab for that? Am I supposed to be responsible for that, or is St. Cobain going to fix it? If it happens.
Yeah, there is an option to put a pressure reducing valve in at that point if that's a big concern. So we can drop it down to close to what you're experiencing now for pressure. Maybe John can.
Yeah, so one point on this. So, typically wells put out, you can set the pressure for whatever point you want. It typically is between 35 and 45 PSI, which results in, kind of a good shower, your kitchen sink flows well. So you're probably going to see an increase in pressure that's going to be beneficial. Most folks will like the higher pressure because they'll get more flow, the shower will be better. Typically, the municipal systems put out better pressure. Now, again, as was pointed out, if there's specific concerns specific to an individual home about having pressure at the higher end, 70 to 80 PSI, we can address that by putting a special valve in, which allows you to adjust the pressure down, back closer to where it is. So that is an option. We prefer not to go that route because it's one more mechanical thing that can cause trouble down the road, but if it's something that's of specific concern, we can talk about that with individuals.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I want to hear more about the non-consumptive use option, simply because we're pretty invested in our well at this point, and we've been relying on it for the past 2.5 years with our own activated granulated carbon filter system, which I also want to hear about reimbursement plans for that. You know, I'm very reluctant to sign up with the MVD based on the history in this town for the past 2 years. And I want to hear more about the non-consumptive option. I want to know what's going to happen if that pump that you're talking about on the excavator doesn't work and you have to do more extensive blasting, and if there's a radon emission of some kind. I need to hear more about Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, and I really, if you're going to dig up our whole road, I don't want it patched. I would like it paved nicely. I feel like that's the least that could happen to us. We have been responsible for our own water quality now for 2.5 years, while we wait to hear what St. Cobain is willing to acknowledge that they did. So I think we're owed a little bit more choice in all this, and also control. I'm very hesitant to decommission my well.
John, you good enough that you can repeat the question, or the multi-part? One of you?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. So essentially, your first concern was related to the history here at MVD and what's happened over the last couple of years with their water quality. And maybe we can let DES speak to that. You have concerns regarding specifically taking your well offline, which has served you well for a couple of years. You've made an investment in that. And related to construction of the connection, the blasting, the potential for blasting, or the need to address ledge, and the disruption related to construction. Did I miss anything there?
Radon.
Oh, and radon, yeah.
We know there's ledge in our neighborhood.
Okay, so I can take a stab at a couple of those, but maybe first I'll let Commissioner Freese speak to the overall picture with MVD here.
So as far as the water quality with MVD, very much as I said, they have been tested. They are public water utilities. They are tested for all contaminants, not just for fluorinated compounds, whereas most of your wells, I would guess, have been tested for, if anything, a very limited array of compounds.
They're going to test for the future compounds as well, the shorter chains?
Yes, they test for the full array. If you compare ourselves, New Hampshire, to any other state, we test for a broader array of analytes than any other state. In fact, we have been creating new standards by doing this. So they are tested for the full range of compounds. Granulated activated carbon, which is what's going to go on wells 4 and 5, is effective against not just the current generation compounds, but also the next generation. As I said, I was just at ORD's lab, met with the person who does this testing. They in North Carolina have been testing for the Gen X compounds 70 months, and they're still seeing non-detect, no breakthrough whatsoever.
I know, Clark, we already bought this system and put it in our house months ago.
But I'm saying MVD right now is already tested for this. They're well below both state standards, and really currently their average is below any standard in any state. Once MVD has the filtration on, that will significantly drop the levels we see today even lower, because they're about an 850,000 gallon per day well set. And that's a lot of the capacity of the overall system.
But that's not happening until the end of 2019,
Probably about then, yes.
at the earliest.
In the meantime, as I said, the average we're seeing right now is below 20 parts per trillion as the overall system. I do understand if you have a filter in your house, you may be temporarily seeing for those compounds a lower level. It is a decision you have to make. We do recommend, because you don't know what the next contaminant is, we don't either. And whatever it is, they're being tested for it the second we know what it is, and they're responsible for taking it out of the public water system. If you're on a public water system, whether it's MVD or anybody else, whatever the next compound is, once they take it out of their system, it's out of your water. If the next compound isn't treated by GAC, they'll fix it, and you won't have to. It's one of the things we recommend. It does also give you the 24/7. They are on backup power and everything else. It does give you some benefits from that. It's a decision you have to personally make, though.
Yeah. Will we be reimbursed for anything we've already invested in? I mean, one of the very first things that broke when we bought our home was the well pump. I mean, that's a $4,000 or $5,000. Today you have to buy a new well pump. We've paid for extensive filtration over the years. We've paid for our own testing. We bought a generator. We bought our new granulated activated carbon system. So we're talking about thousands of dollars in the home that we're currently paying for and happy to pay for. but I don't want to incur a new water bill on top of that. So that's another part I want to hear more about, is what is the baseline water bill we can expect? Even if we do this non-consumptive option, is there going to be a minimum? Because the friends I do know that are on MVD, their bills have gone up without the new filtration. I mean, they're not happy customers.
So
And I don't
can
wanna
answer
be another
part of that,
unhappy
and then I
customer.
believe Ms. Gilman can answer as far as the average bill and so forth. As far as your personal restitution for costs you've taken, as I had in the earlier slide, the consent decree merely covers the state's requirements, which are access to a safe water source. And so that's what has been signed away, basically, by them agreeing to this and us signing the agreement. If you've been personally damaged and you feel like they should compensate you for that, none of that right has been taken away from you. You absolutely have the right to do that. There is a contact sheet with phone numbers, and I believe St. Cobain's contact number for this site is on there. And you can call them, and I know that they have worked with some individual properties where there are unique circumstances, and they've come to some accommodation with some people. I don't know the specifics because that's between an individual and St. Cobain, not MVD, sorry. If you do have other questions about the MVD system, Ron is here and Jill are here. They can also answer more specific questions about the MVD system. But I think you guys have gotten some averages as far as average bills.
I actually have to defer to MVD on that.
What's an average water bill?
An average bill, we generally run about $80 to $100. That's a four-person family.
Per month, Ron?
Per quarter.
Per quarter.
So his answer was, it's about, for an average family of four, the average bill they're seeing is $80 per quarter. I can tell you, I live in Pennachuck East, and we're over $80 a month. So it's not an outlandish bill. Obviously, if you weren't paying anything before other than upkeep on the pump and the electrical and everything else, it's a bill you weren't paying yesterday, and it's a bill you will be paying tomorrow. Nobody likes paying more bills.
No, not when you've already paid thousands in your well. I want to know if there's a tiered structure to that billing. Like, is there a baseline monthly
If
cost?
you've got questions about billing, I'd suggest you talk to MVD and get that personally, because, I mean, everybody's circumstance is different. The average bill is $80 a quarter. You know, some
80
bills
to
can be more,
100.
some be less.
80 to 100 per
For
quarter.
a family of four.
For four.
Right.
Okay, I also want to go back to the radon piece too. I know I'll talk with MVD about the billing, but I think there's a lot more to share with us.
Is your concern radon in the water, because the water is tested for radon?
No,
and they're
I'm concerned
below?
about blasting and releasing additional contaminants associated with blasting. I mean, there's so much granite around here, and I know for a fact our whole street is ledge. So once you start blasting, you release other things. In addition to structural damage, I'm very concerned about that as well.
So related to radon as it relates to blastings, first off, at this point in time, we're not anticipating to need to do blasting. That's what we're going to try to avoid. Again, we won't know that for sure until we really get into the design process, but right now the intent is to take care of this through a hydraulic hammer on an excavator. It's basically a jackhammer that's mounted, it's a big jackhammer that's mounted on an excavator. These are very common for use in installing water main where you have shallow ledge. I am not aware of any studies that indicate that if there's a potential to increase radon release in homes as a result of waterline installation such as this. And just thinking it through, I'm not sure what the mechanism would be to do that. So I'm not aware of that being a significant concern. The water line, you currently have a penetration in your base, in your foundation for a well to come in. We're going to be doing a similar penetration through the foundation to get a water line in. That will be sealed, so it's going to be watertight, so you're not going to get any air release through that. So I don't see there being a real potential for the release of contaminants through the construction process. Again, the intent here with the construction process is to put everybody back and make everybody whole again when we're done. So basically, we're going to plan on documenting what the conditions are before the construction starts at your homes. We'll be taking pictures, documenting it, and then also talking to folks about what's there and how we're going to put it back and what we're going to restore. And the intent is to put it back the way it is, put it back the way we found it. And the same thing goes for city streets. town streets, we're going to have to get a trench permit to do this through the town. The town is going to specify what we're required to do, and that's what we're going to follow. So whatever the town requires that we do, if we're working in the town right away, that's what we're going to ultimately end up doing. So there's certainly some review. It's not like we have, carte blanche to go do what we want. There's a review locally, and the town is going to make sure that they're satisfied with what we're doing here. And again, related to your well investment, I would suggest there was contact info in there in the folder that you picked up tonight, so that would be the avenue to address that. Tonight, we're really here tonight specifically to talk about the construction project and facilitating getting people connected.
And I don't want to overextend my welcome here, but I want to know what hours, like we could expect all this jackhammering to happen too, because I feel like that's a piece
That's based on town ordinances.
going to be relevant.
They're restricted by town ordinance as to what they can do. So that doesn't change for this construction versus any other construction in town.
What can we expect though? That's what I want to know, like day hours?
I believe it's daytime hours, I believe it's 7 a.m. I don't know what the end hours are, but it's whatever we've got in existence now in the town. If you call the town, I'm sure they can tell you what the hours are. But that doesn't change. Thank you. Good questions. Anyone else with questions? Yes, sir. Right, yep, you.
It's kind of my thing, one of the things that subcontractors involved with it. If there's a problem that you experience with putting a system in, do you call it you're the main controller, or do you go through the subcontractor?
So we'll be your main point of contact. So basically, if you have questions or
What was the
concerns.
question? What was the question?
Oh, sorry. The question was, there's going to be subcontractors working on, there'll be plumbers involved, and site work contractors involved. If there's an issue with those contractors, who do you folks contact? And that would be us. That'd be Horizons Engineering. So basically, we're overseeing the project for St. Cobain, so we would be the point of contact if you folks have questions or concerns.
Just one other minor thing. They're gonna go right across my front lawn. There's no other option. Is that going to include the subcontractor that you guys do resodding the lawn? Or does it just mean giving all the guys?
So we're going to document what's there right now, and the intent is we put it back the way it looks when we're done. So it'll be reloaned, reseeded, and it'll look nice, as nice as it does now when we're done. That's the intent. We want to leave you folks feeling like, wow, they did a good job.
Whether it's the contractor or the subcontractor, you're going to end up the same way you are. Yes, ma'am.
We have a dug well. It's about 12 feet deep. I was wondering how they would decommission that, the well itself. What they would.
36-inch well.
It's a 36-inch well tile. I was wondering how they would fill that or what they would do to.
Yep, so the question is, as opposed to a typical drill well, these folks have a dug well, shallower, larger diameter, and the question was, how will we decommission that? So there's a standard protocol for decommissioning dug wells. Typically, the way we would do it is we would pull so these are typically in 3-foot by 3-foot well tiles. They're stacked on top of one another. So we would probably pull the top 2 tiles, so we're down about 3 feet. Typically, depending on where the joints in the tiles lay, we'll be down at least 2 or 3 feet below grade. Typically, we would fill the well with crushed stone up to a point where we're down about a foot or 2 below the top of the ring that's left, and then put some of that grout in there to seal it off so water can't get down in, put grout around it, and then backfill.
We good? Yes, ma'am.
We want to go to the baby circle. I received the letter from the mail, received the letter. Turns out I had trouble with my well in February. And I had a contractor to do my exam water. And I explained I had nothing to happen. Tested my water, you said it was fine. I didn't expect anything. So am I out of luck?
You're in one of the ones that's eligible for connection, but you didn't realize it, and so therefore you connected on your own dime ahead of time, and therefore do you have any recourse?
So if you wouldn't, she already answered the question. I was going to repeat your question. If you'll meet with me afterwards and just give me your information, I'll talk to St. Cobain. Obviously, if you didn't know and you did this, they've already agreed to pay that expense. I'll see if I can get them to work with you on some accommodation. They can figure out what they were going to pay these guys to do it and offer you maybe that equivalent. But meet with me afterwards so I know which address I'm talking about, and I'll see what I can do.
There's another question, I did not need permission as well. That's why I still was at that time.
Highly recommend that you have your well decommissioned. We're not ordering you, but we highly, highly, highly recommend that you decommission your well. Since that is already part of their work order, they will decommission your well at St. Cobain's expense.
You had another question? Yes, sir.
Everybody in this room has problems with their wells caused by St. Gobain. Some have lived here 10, 20, 30, 50 years. Never had a problem with their well. To fix it all now is all well and good, and everybody's going to get saddled with a water bill for $300, $400, $500, $600, $800 every 3 months. Why isn't St. Gobain paying for my water for the rest of my life? I didn't cause the problem, they did. And if they hadn't polluted the land, my well would have run for another 50 years.
So the concern or complaint is that he didn't do anything wrong. Why is he now getting a water bill? As I said, we covered the consent decree. The state can demand certain things because the state lost something, and that is the state controls the water and it should be available for drinking. The current water is not, and so they have to offer an alternative that is safe for drinking. By the state's requirements, this meets that requirement, and the state's damages are met. You individually have the ability to sue if you feel like you have been personally damaged. Nothing in the consent decree has taken any of those rights away. We do not have the ability to basically go to bat on your personal behalf. To be able to do that, I'd have to be able to sign away your rights. For me to negotiate saying, I don't know your name, but Bob is not going to sue you anymore if you do X, Y, and Z, I have to be able to sign away your right to sue. And we don't have that right. And so I can't go to bat for that, unfortunately. I live in one of the affected towns and my neighbors have the same complaint. And I agree with you. You did not have a water bill. You did nothing wrong. Why should you have a water bill? I agree with you. But as the state, we don't have the ability to sign away your rights. And therefore, I also don't have the ability to go after that damage. I'm sorry. I really am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Curious if there's a limit on the amount of water for the so-called $80 or $90 per quarter that you can use?
Ron, is there a limit?
Are they on meters or?
When you're metering,
We are metering. So that's a typical water bill for the
Without
typical
irrigation.
family. So if not typical, you could have a higher water bill?
Absolutely, yeah.
Someone that waters the lawn, waters.
the water bill is based on usage, is that correct, Ron?
Yes, $1.90.
Which brings me to my second question. If I don't decommission my well, how much assistance will I get for plumbing inside the house for picking fixtures that I want to have town water on and the ones I don't?
So what we're going to do, the question was, how do I get assistance if the option is selected to keep a well online? How is that well going to be left and what fixtures are going to be connected? How's that going to work? So what we will be doing is when we're meeting with you, for folks that elect to keep their wells online for non-potable lawn irrigation and car washing, we will discuss with you and identify which fixtures will be tied into that well. The well will be physically disconnected from any of the potable plumbing in the house, and our scope would include plumbing that well in to serve just the specific fixtures. Now our scope wouldn't be adding new fixtures, but let's say you've got two outside faucets, two outside hose bibs, we would plumb the well into those two outside hose bibs.
Steve, did that take care of it?
No, what about inside services, say a dishwasher or a pump-up toilet system?
What they're saying is that if you want to leave your well in existence,
Right.
they will leave it connected to those outside sources
Right, I'm
that you
I'm
want.
curious about inside source.
But inside sources will be connected to the new water system.
I don't drink from my toilet, sorry.
Sorry. Yes, sir, any, oh, well, all right, go ahead.
The concern with hooking up any interior fixtures to your well is the risk of cross-contamination into the public water system. One of the number one drivers in any part of this design is we do not want to risk contaminated water getting backfilled into the public water system. So the offer is any interior either goes on public or stays on your well. Exterior, if you want that connected, you can retain your well and they'll put it on. They will also label it as non-potable use.
What about the systems on the wells that do not go above the 70 PPT level?
The question was, is there a difference if you're below 70 PPT or above 70
Say you're at
PPT?
30 or 20. Or
As we said, the problem is you don't actually know what your number is today.
Yeah.
And I don't either. You were tested at some point, and you know at that point in time what the number was. If all of your neighbors stop pumping and you're still pumping, you very much don't know what your number is today or what it'll be in 6 months or a year, and we don't know.
Will St. Cobain pay for that?
No, they will not. The offer is today to get you connected to public water. That meets the requirements of the state. Once they have made that offer and you refuse it, you have made the decision to go on your own. Unfortunately, that is, it meets the requirements of the state and they've satisfied it.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, is the main trunk line going to be totally installed before any individual homes are hooked up?
You're talking about the line,
The main water,
you're talking about the line, you're talking about the line going down your street?
right.
Is that going to be installed prior to any individual
Right, in
town?
other words, are they gonna put in a certain length of line?
Does
main line?
does the entire street go down and get installed first before individuals get hooked up?
Yes, we would expect that the main line would be installed first, and then we'd come in and tap into the main line. And they would put a corporation stop at the main line and run the service after the main line.
Yes, sir.
My frontage on Wire Road, if I'm not mistaken, it's wide enough to be considered two properties. I was offered two different house numbers to choose from because of the width of my property. Does that mean I can have a shut-off put, a spare shut-off put on my property?
So at this point in time, so the question is, the property is large enough to subdivide potentially into two lots
Yes.
in the future.
Yes.
So is there going to be a second service put in? And the response to that for right now is no. What we're tasked with doing is providing a service to each existing home that's out there that's within this area. If it's an undeveloped lot that's a current single lot of record, we'll provide one service because we can't speak to what's going to happen in the future.
I see.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So you may have answered this already, so forgive me if you did.
That's all right.
So you said that you would put it back the way you found it, but there was also some talk about patching, as in driveways or on roadway. So if the roadway and our driveways are not patched right now, or is everything going to be repaved?
It's going to look like it is now.
So it'll be repaved?
Whatever you've got now,
Yeah.
when they get done, it's going to look the same as what you've got now.
So my answer would be yes, it will be repaved?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Where they pierce my foundation to bring in the water from the street, maybe through a hole in the foundation where the well comes in or whatever, hasn't leaked in 50 years. 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, when the snow melts in the spring, the first spring thaw, and it comes pouring in through there, who's going to be liable? St. Cobain, one of the two contractors that actually installed the pipe in my house, or am I getting stuck for the...
I heard them say earlier that any installation that goes through your foundation is going to be completely sealed at the time that it is done.
Well, what if it leaks?
What if it leaks? Mine's been sealed for 50 years, and that's okay, and then they pierce parallel to my well pipe.
So what is the
water?
warranty of the work? 20 years, 20 years, 50 years?
All right, so typically, the question is if there's a leak down the road. Well, again, if on a pipe penetration going through the foundation, the question is if 5 years from now or 10 years from now that leaks.
Well,
If a year from now it leaks. So essentially, when we do contract work such as this, typically the contractors will warranty the quality of their work. That typical warranty period is a year. So the contractors will typically warranty that their job is done, and they're going to warranty. So 6 months after it's installed and it leaks, you call us up, we'll call the contractor, get out there, and it can be addressed appropriately. Again, I think that though, the contractors that are going to be doing this work are going to be familiar with this kind of work. They do it all the time. That's the contractors that we're going to invite to bid on this project. So they will be qualified, and the quality of the work will be what it needs to be. So I think that the likelihood of issues such as that will be low, but if there is an issue, there will be a warranty period and it can be addressed.
that's to recover the repair of the leak, what you said.
Yes.
The contractor will repair the leak. What happens if my cellar floods, all the damage in the cellar over a 2, 3 day, 4 day, a week period, whatever?
If it's within the first year, then damages are included in that warranty.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
By what date do these need to be signed and returned?
By what date do they need to be signed and returned?
Well, we would like them as soon as possible. We don't really have a specific deadline at this point. We do need permission to get on your property and to do the work, and so we can proceed expeditiously with the design and stay on schedule. So we'd appreciate it if it was done as soon as possible, but no specific deadline.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. No, go ahead.
Are there any areas that you'll be working first that have maybe development or contamination?
Do you have a schedule for which areas of town is going to be addressed first? No, not addressed yet. And, yes, ma'am.
I'm just realizing this is going to go out to bid. I thought you were doing the construction.
Not me.
Well, not you, of course, but, so when you put it out to bid, right, is it going to be the lowest bidder that wins?
They're going to be the GCs, and they're getting people to do the work that are qualified, that they've worked with. It's not necessarily a low bid contract. They're getting people that are going to be able to do this and do it well.
Yeah, I want to hear from him more about
So again, the question is this going to be a low bid job, and are we going to go with the cheapest contractor that bids on the job?
Yeah.
The answer is that this is a little different than a typical job that we would put out, and that we would take the lowest bid and hold the contractor to that. This is going to be an invite-only basis that we're going to be using to select a contractor. So we're going to select contractors during this procurement process that we have confidence that are qualified to do this work. The other benefit of the way this is structured is that we are essentially operating as an owner's representative, so we are watching the contractors very carefully for compliance with the way we've specified the work being done. So we're essentially a third party that's an advocate for our client and for you folks there to make sure that we're watching the contractor that's doing the work and making sure that that work is done in a quality manner.
And I saw one, yes, sir.
Are there inspections involved with this once it's complete? Like, who inspects the work? Does the town inspect it, or do you inspect it?
Yeah, so what we will be doing as part of the process, the question is there any inspections as part of this work? And the answer is yes, there will be. There will be inspection as part of the water main installation at the request of MVD and the town. There'll likely be yet another engineering firm involved that will do third-party inspection on the town and MVD's behalf to make sure that this is done appropriately. We will also be doing our own inspections to make sure the work is meeting our standards, and we will also, when the project is done, be meeting with each individual homeowner and property owner to make sure that they're satisfied with the way things were done, and then address any punch list items and make sure that everybody's satisfied before we walk away.
I saw one last question down
I
here.
have one too.
Okay? Yes, sir.
How many forms were you expecting to get mailed back?
I'm sorry?
How many forms are you expecting to get mailed back?
I hope you get them all.
And how many is all?
Do we know how many?
Yeah, it was in the slides. It's 55 properties, but a number of them are undeveloped.
No, I mean, I'm mailing in a number of forms I'm filling out. How many am I supposed to be mailing in personally?
So the question is how many forms, physically, how many forms were in your information package?
Yeah, I have an envelope to mail back to you.
John, do you know how many
How many pieces of paper do you expect?
So there's 3 forms in the package. So we can get them one of 3 ways. You can get the forms to us. You can mail them to us, return mail. You can...
How many forms? You expect?
3 forms in the package. And we can go over those forms with you. So the second way we can do this is that when we come out, if you've lined up a property visit, we can go over the forms with you at that point in time and pick them up from you and explain them, go over them, etc. And then also we can accept them via scan and email as well.
All right, I have one question here and one here. Go ahead, ma'am.
So you mentioned that a typical warranty on a project like this is about a year.
Correct.
But in your comment that you just made prior to this last question, you said that this is an unusual circumstance or a special circumstance, and I agree with you, it is. So I am asking on behalf of hopefully all of us for you to extend that warranty.
10 years or something. This is a big project.
So the question is, can we extend the warranty period? I think that's something that we can address with individual homeowners when we come in to meet with you guys. Again, we haven't procured a contractor yet, so we haven't gotten into those details yet. But again, we understand that this is a really important and a big project to you folks, but also understand that this is something that we do all the time. We're very familiar with doing these projects, and the contractors that are going to be doing the work are going to be very familiar with doing this kind of work. So you just trust us that you had to have some confidence in the process. But yes, we will be discussing that with you as individuals when we meet.
And my comment isn't that I don't trust you or I don't trust what all the decisions are being made, but you know, situations happen and different homes have different things that happen, and so you know, none of us are here because we want to be here necessarily. I'm sure you guys included, we all wish we weren't here. So it is a special consideration. So I just really feel that, you know, it's one thing to negotiate special warranties with individual homeowners, but perhaps it could be given to the whole group of people.
We had another question down here.
No, I'm
sorry.
like an answer to that. I don't
It should not be usually negotiated by me or you or somebody else. It should be for the whole town.
Everybody should have the same warranty.
And my point is, I don't believe they're in a position to negotiate that with you personally tonight, but your comments have been taken by them and they've heard them, and they're going to take them under consideration.
But his answer is that it will be done usual basis. We are asking for the whole town, everybody affected.
He heard that.
Yeah, we hear what you're saying. That's
And what is the
something that-
response?
So how will we know what the answer will be?
when we
When you come and meet with
So again, so the answer is how are we going to what the ultimate?
You're not even saying that you will consider for the whole town. You're saying you'll consider on an individual basis.
I can't speak to what we're going to consider at this point. This question was just asked of us. It's not typical to go beyond that, but that's something that we can discuss internally with our client and our team and get back to you guys on. That's all I can represent at this point in time. We haven't had a chance to review this request and think about it at all, but that's something we can put some thought into and get back to folks on.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I just have a clarification. If I were to retain my well for the non-consumptive use, and we just, for watering our grass and washing cars, like you said, and we go to sell the house, I just have to disclose that, but now the water that we're using is not affecting my drinking water or well water, right? Because it comes from the wells.
That's correct.
Okay, so what would happen, I mean, as far as, do you know what the ramifications are in real estate? Okay, there are.
Talk to a real estate agent.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, the rising gentleman said that all of their employees are going to have photo ID badges. Are they going to be accompanying the construction crews when they come through the neighborhood? How do I know some guy knocks on my door and says, I want to get in your cellar and blast a hole through there and he's going to steal my property?
So yeah, so we're going to have, we won't have photo ID badges, but we will have badges with our name tags and a number to contact to confirm that that's who we are. But when we get into construction, We'll work out the procedures at that point in time for a way to identify that the plumber that's been contracted to work on your house, they will also have similar identification. So you will know that they're part of the project.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to get a sense of how our quality of life is going to be impacted by all of this construction. You know, we have kids that ride bikes and play on our street. Is there going to be a ton of equipment around? What months is all of this happening? And I can't agree more than what these people in the front row are saying, that I need to trust that you're negotiating on all of our collective best interests. A 1-year warranty is unacceptable. I want a 10, 15, 20-year warranty on all of these parts because we have a finished basement that we have paid for. I'm not going to trust your not low bid
And what he's
contractor.
saying is, that's not a question that he can answer tonight, because
But I guess what I'm
it was
asking-
just raised, and they're gonna go back and they're gonna discuss it. And this will be information that will be coming forward to you.
I would ask that if you're going to make decisions on our part and in our best interest, that we have an ongoing communication about that.
I don't
Moving
doubt that
forward.
that's gonna happen.
Do you represent
Wait,
them or do you represent the town?
I don't represent anybody. I'm representing you guys, and I'm just trying to help everything going.
Behalf, though, not our behalf.
I'm sorry?
You're not talking on our behalf, though. What
No,
you're
I'm
saying
not,
is-
and I'm not talking on their behalf either. I'm just reiterating what they have said.
And she's reiterating what we are asking for, and you're saying, forget it.
No, I'm not saying forget it. I'm saying that this is the first time this has been raised to these gentlemen. They hadn't heard this before. It's something brand new. They can't answer on the fly. They're going to have to go back and get an answer for everybody in this town, and they have heard what you're asking for.
And I would just ask then that nothing moves forward until we have more clarification on what exactly we're getting and when exactly it's going to be happening and what that warranty looks like.
This is going to be an ongoing discussion, trust me. This isn't the final end of this tonight.
Well, I have to say, I'm very unpleased that someone negotiated on my behalf at the DES with St. Gobain. I have asked multiple times to have a seat at that table, and no one has ever surveyed any of us as to what we really want before negotiating on our behalf. So I am going to insist, Lynn, that we have open communication moving forward about what we collectively will agree to.
I can't imagine that there wouldn't be open communication. That's something that everybody wants, everybody has been demanding, and I'm sure is going to happen.
When is the next meeting set to be?
There's no meeting set yet, but this is not... You can't set a meeting tonight for what's going to happen, but you can talk to the town and you can express your concerns and say, what's this going to happen? These are new issues that are coming up tonight that can't be decided tonight. They're valid concerns, they're valid issues, and you're going to have to talk to the town and have the town come through and continue to communicate with you.
You realize when we go to talk to the town, we get put in this awkward situation where the town council doesn't tell MVP what to do. MVP doesn't act on our behalf because we're in a highly contested zone. So who in the town are we supposed to talk to?
I would go in and talk to community development
You know,
or the town council. Yes, ma'am.
respectfully, if I were going to hire a contractor to come to my home to do some work, I would have the scope of work, I would have the price, I would have the warranty all ahead of time. And here, you know, we are not.
So so the question is that when if an individual homeowner is going to have work done at their home, they're going to have the contractor come in, they're going to talk to the contractor, they're going to meet them, have a level of comfort that they're comfortable working with this contractor, they're going to have a price, and you're going to ask the contractor how long is your work going to be warranted. That's exactly what we're talking about doing here tonight. So when we had the table set up, and again after the meeting we can do that, we want to have an initial meeting with all the folks here in this room that are affected parties that we're going to be talking about connecting to. Those discussions will start at that point, where we'll take a look at what the connection would entail at your home, both outside and inside, and start that discussion about what the contractor is going to have to do at your home, and start those discussions. And then there is going to be more discussion as it goes in, so as the process starts. So there's going to be ample opportunity to talk about that. It has to start somewhere. And that initial visit, when we come out and meet with each individual property owner to identify the specifics of each property, is exactly what you're talking about doing when you'd have a contractor come out. So that's really the approach. So that's where the dialogue starts and the communication starts. You folks have John's contact information now. So you have Horizon's contact information. If there's any questions regarding how we're going to do this, by all means, you can email us, you can call us, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you individually about that. But again, we really can't do much further until we have some specific discussions with you folks about your homes individually.
Possible to publish bid specs.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, absolutely. So, the question, the comment was, will we publish out there what the plans and specifications will be for the water main? And actually, it will be submitted to the Department of Environmental Services for review, so it's going to be public information anyway. It'll also be submitted to MVD for review and comment. So yes, they will be available for folks to review. That'll include plans and specifications for the water main and standard details for how we would connect the individual homes, what the specifications are for that.
Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate your attendance tonight. This is only a start to give you an idea as to what the plan is going forward, and any further information, you have the contact information in all the handouts that have been here tonight, and I thank you for your courtesy and your respectfulness.
Thank you. It's all your fault, too. It's all your fault, I know it.
I think